So if you're one of them people like, oh, we should still give, we can't let Putin take over all of Europe and blah blah blah. This dude like lays it all out on the table what's really going on and how Zelensky has been in bed with Kamala Harris and the EU and the Biden administration to essentially keep the war going for as long as possible so that they could keep, skimming money off the top.
So the NATO enlargement, as you know, started in 1999 with Hungary, Poland, and the Czech Republic. And Russia was extremely unhappy about it. But these were countries still far from the border. And Russia protested, but of course to no avail. Then George Bush Jr. came in. When 9/11 occurred, President Putin pledged all support. And then the U.S. Decided in September 20th, 2001, that it would launch 7 wars in 5 years. And you can listen to General Wesley Clark online talk about that. He was NATO's supreme commander in 1999. He went to the Pentagon on September 20th, 2001. He was handed the paper explaining 7 wars. These, by the way, were Netanyahu's wars. The idea was partly to clean up old Soviet allies and partly to take out supporters of Hamas and Hezbollah. Because Netanyahu's idea was there will be one state, thank you, only one state. It will be Israel. Israel will control all of the territory. And anyone that objects, we will overthrow. Not we exactly, our friend, the United States. That's U.S. policy until this morning. We don't know whether it will change. Now, the only wrinkle is that maybe the U.S. will own Gaza instead of Israel owning Gaza. But the idea has been around at least for 25 years. It actually goes back to a document called Clean Break that Netanyahu and his American political team put together in 1996 to end the idea of the two-state solution. You can also find it online. So these are projects. These are long-term events. These aren't, is it Clinton? Is it Bush? Is it Obama? That's the boring way to look at American politics, as the day-to-day game. But that's not what American politics is. As you know, Viktor Yanukovych was elected in 2010 on the platform of neutrality. Russia had no territorial interests or designs in Ukraine at all. I know. I was there during these years. What Russia was negotiating was a 25-year lease to 2042 for Sevastopol Naval Base. That's it. Not for Crimea, not for the Donbass, nothing like that. This idea that Putin is reconstructing the Russian Empire, this is childish propaganda. Excuse me. If anyone knows the day-to-day and year-to-year history, this is childish stuff. Childish stuff seems to work better than adult stuff. So, no designs at all. The United States decided this man must be overthrown. It's called a regime change operation. There have been about 100 of them by the United States, many in your countries, and many all over the world. That's what the CIA does for a living. Okay? Please know it. It's a very unusual kind of foreign policy. But in America, if you don't like the other side, you don't negotiate with them, you try to overthrow them. Preferably covertly. If it doesn't work covertly, you do it overtly. You always say it's not our fault, they're the aggressor. They're the other side. They're Hitler. That comes up every 2 or 3 years. Whether it's Saddam Hussein, whether it's Assad, whether it's Putin, that's very convenient. That's the only foreign policy explanation the American people are ever given anywhere. Well, we're facing Munich 1938. Well, we're facing Munich 1938. Can't talk to the other side. They're evil, implacable foes. That's the only model of foreign policy we ever hear from our mass media. And the mass media repeats it entirely because it's completely suborned by the U.S. government. Zelensky said in 7 days, let's negotiate. I know the details of this exquisitely because I've talked to all the parties in detail. Within a couple of weeks, there was a document exchanged that President Putin had approved, that Lavrov had presented, that was being managed by the Turkish mediators. I flew to Ankara to listen in detail to what the mediators were doing. Ukraine walked away unilaterally from a near agreement.
Yep.
Why? Because the United States told them to. Because the UK added icing to the cake by having Bojo go in early April to Ukraine and explain. And he has recently, and if your security is in the hands of Boris Johnson, God help us all. Keith Starmer turns out to be even worse.
Yeah, Boris Johnson sold him out. And Keir Starmer is even worse. He's a damn dictator. Straight up. He's ignoring the will of his people. And now he's even, this dude, he's so out of touch with reality, man. Either that or he's just dumb, or he knows exactly what he's doing. They have like literally a 75,000 man army. That's it. 75,000 men. That's like nothing. Literally, like absolute. It's like a speck of a military. And he's talking about putting half of his entire military on the ground as peacekeepers in Ukraine. It looks more to me like, I think he's figured it out. Like, look, the only people that would really be willing to fight are like men, people with strong wills that would stand up to the government. I honestly think he wants to get rid of all of you. I swear to God. I think he wants to put you in harm's way on purpose to get you out of the way because let's be honest, his people hate him. That he's proved to be inept, an absolute just failure on every levels. A spineless coward failure on every levels who doesn't have a strategic thought in his head. And he knows his people hate him. He knows he doesn't have the will of the people. So I honestly think he wouldn't mind to just kill off all the opposition. Like send them over to a war that they should never be in to begin with. And if that don't do it, we'll get rid of them some other way. But I honestly think they want to get rid of all dissidents over there. I think they're a full socialist regime at this point. They care not about the will of the people whatsoever. You guys are a bunch of big dummies, and they got the degrees, and they need to tell you guys what to do for your own good. And this dude's laying it out on the table here. Like, if you remember, Zelensky was, they're in the middle of a war. Zelensky's over here bad-mouthing Trump and campaigning for Kamala Harris and doing smoochy interviews about the Biden administration. Oh, we wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for you guys, and blah, blah, blah. And Trump remembers all that shit. Like, Trump... It seems to me that Zelensky really didn't care about ending this war. He didn't mind having over 100,000 casualties die in this war. At the same time, I get it that they didn't want to bend the knee to Russia. You know, it was kind of heroic what they did to fight back. But they fought and they lost. You know, now it's time to rest, period. And this big shot guy that he's trying to play now, it's like, look, dude, you might have had the will of the people when Biden was in office, because, you know, they got the whole industrial media liberal complex behind them, you know, spewing misinformation and lies to get you to be propaganda, to get you on the side of Ukraine. Well, that shit's dead now. Like, you guys got $300 billion in aid. You wasted only like a third of it is actually accounted for. You got weapons flying all over Ukraine. People are, you know, all these weapons have been sold to a place to God knows where, all throughout Europe. And, you know, dude hasn't did a good job. And the media has been floating him, has been protecting him, has been lifting him up and acting like Trump's crazy and he don't know what he's talking about. Trump has that's the thing, is Trump understands this shit way better than you, way better than these media outlets, way better. It doesn't matter how many degrees you have if you went to a liberal arts college and you learned from all Marxist professors that have no fucking clue what they're talking about and live in a deluded reality. Like, that's how we got here, is just this elitist luxury views is how we got here in the first place.
It's unimaginable, but it is true. Boris Johnson has explained, and you can look it up on the website, that what's at stake here is Western hegemony. Not Ukraine, Western hegemony.
Yeah, pathetic.
Michael and I met at the Vatican with a group in the spring of 2022, where we wrote a document explaining nothing good can come out of this war for Ukraine. Negotiate now, because anything that takes time will mean massive amounts of deaths, risk of nuclear escalation, and likely loss of the war. I wouldn't change one word from what we wrote then. Nothing was wrong in that document. And since that document, since the U.S.
Yeah, the media has literally like manufactured fake support for this war that almost got us into a nuclear conflict with the biggest nuclear superpower in the world. Yet these liberals are still praising Biden. It's been proven essentially that the dude was an absolute criminal and probably should be in prison. All the corruption and shit that he did. And these liberals are still supporting the war. They want to kill Ukrainians down to the last man. They don't want to make a deal. They're so stupid that they just refuse to even speak with Putin because he's a dictator. That's how morally superior they think they are. You know, they can't even talk to that barbaric criminal, or what they call him, war criminal Putin. We can't even negotiate with him. There's no negotiation to be had. Ukraine could never win this war from the start. And smart people knew that. Like, historians, economists were saying from the start, this is a horrible idea. What the fuck is the Biden administration doing? Well, we know now that they were funding Ukraine and then funneling the money back to the United States to personal interests. And it's absolutely pathetic, man. You know, if we don't get accountability for stuff like this, the government will never have the public trust again, fully, like it did before.
Talked the negotiators away from the table. About 1 million Ukrainians have died or been severely wounded.
1 million.
and the American senators, who are as nasty and cynical and corrupt as imaginable,
Yeah.
say this is wonderful expenditure of our money because no Americans are dying. It's the pure proxy war. One of our senators nearby me, Blumenthal, says this out loud. Mitt Romney says this out loud. It's best money America can spend. No Americans are dying.
They're deluded.
Share, and subscribe.
They're absolutely deluded, man. They live in a fantasy world. How do you guys think we're going to fix this? What do you think is going to have to happen for? Because it's become clear that these people. Trump was right. These people are the enemy within, and something needs to be done with these communist sympathizers and cultural Marxists and shit. Something. There needs to be some type of penalty for these people, because that's the problem here, is they face zero penalties for their actions. They're sheltered from their, they don't receive the consequences of their own terrible decisions.